My name's Arthur. I thank you for joining me as we share together from Deuteronomy chapter 24. This begins with a section on divorce. There's been so much emphasis in chapter 21 and 22 about marriage, and unfortunately, sometimes marriages fail. God's intention was that a man and woman should become one flesh and live together in harmony, working together. And in many cases that happens. But in some cases, the relationship falls apart, whether because of neglect by the husband, or violence, or because the wife gets distracted by something else. The emphasis in the New Testament is that if a period of separation is necessary, that the parties should work towards reconciliation. But God has made provision for divorce, and this matter was raised in the presence of the Lord Jesus, because it's an ongoing problem. In fact, the Lord uses the idea of divorce in describing his relationship with the nation of Israel, as he symbolically married them at Mount Horeb with an exchange of vows. But they were rebellious against him, and so he has withdrawn from them. But one of the things that I've observed is that often when people divorce, they still can't unentangle their lives. And so God is still involved in the life of the nation of Israel, and will one day take them again. Deuteronomy chapter 24. When a man takes a wife and marries her, and it happens that she finds no favour in his eyes, because he has found some uncleanness in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce, puts it in her hand, and sends her out of his house. When she has departed from his house, and goes and becomes another man's wife, if the latter husband detests her and writes her a certificate of divorce, puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house, or if the latter husband dies who took her as his wife, then the former husband who divorced her must not take her back to be his wife after she has been defiled. For that is an abomination before the Lord. And you shall not bring sin on the land which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. Notice this instruction is not one that a man must divorce his wife if he's unhappy with her, but provision is made that he can. But if he has, and she marries somebody else, then he must not take her again. In Matthew chapter 19, the Pharisees quizzed Jesus about divorce, testing him. Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for just any reason? And Jesus answered and said to them, Have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female? And for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together, let not man separate. And they said to him, Why then did Moses command to give a certificate of divorce, and to put her away? And he said, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, permitted you to divorce your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality, and marries another, commits adultery, and whoever marries her who is divorced commits adultery. And the disciples said, If such is the case of a man with his wife, it is better not to marry. And so the emphasis of teaching in the New Testament is if a person is separated from his spouse, and that leads to a divorce, that the parties should not remarry. But in 1 Corinthians 7 we find that if the unbelieving partner does remarry, it seems the other party is free to marry again also. Because, according to this rule here, in Deuteronomy 24, once one party has remarried, the original marriage cannot be resumed. But if a remarriage has not occurred, then the Christian must stay single in hope of restoration. And Israel has not remarried, has not found another God. They are still the Lord's people, and the Lord will take them again. Moving on to verse 5 of Deuteronomy 24, When a man has taken a new wife, he shall not go out to war or be charged with any business. He shall be free at home 1 year, and bring happiness to his wife whom he has taken. So, in the first year of marriage, special consideration needs to be given to strengthen and establish that marriage. The statutes in the rest of the chapter largely deal with procedures relating to the poor and needy in the land, that they not be overly exploited, but that they be provided for. Verse 6, no man shall take the lower or upper millstone in pledge, for he takes one's living in pledge. Sometimes people give pledges to confirm a promise. You must make sure that the pledge does not cause undue hardship. Taking the millstone would mean that the person could not prepare their meals. If a man is found kidnapping any of his brethren of the children of Israel and mistreats him or sells him, then that kidnapper shall die, and you shall put away the evil from among you. Unfortunately, kidnapping continues today, as people are made slaves, despite the fact that slavery is illegal in Western countries. Take heed in the outbreak of leprosy that you carefully observe and do according to all that the priests, the Levites, shall teach you. Just as I commanded them, so you shall be careful to do. Remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam on the way when you came out of Egypt. So Miriam was put out of the camp for a week, and then allowed to come back in after she was certified clean. And so we need to be careful not to spread disease. When you lend your brother anything, you shall not go into his house to get his pledge. You shall stand outside, and the man to whom you lend shall bring the pledge out to you. And if the man is poor, you shall not keep his pledge overnight. You shall in any case return the pledge to him again when the sun goes down, that he may sleep in his own garment and bless you, and it shall be righteousness to you before the Lord your God. Always give respect to people, even those of humble circumstances, their space, their home, their territory. When you realise the pledge you've received is something that is critical for a person's living, then return it to them. You've received his pledge, he's made his promise, but you don't make him suffer as a result. Verse 14, you shall not oppress a hired servant who is poor and needy, whether one of your brethren or one of the aliens who is in your land within your gates. Each day you shall give him his wages, and not let the sun go down on it, for he is poor and has set his heart on it, lest he cry out against you to the Lord, and it be sin to you. Pay wages on time. Don't exploit the poor. Fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor shall children be put to death for their fathers. A person shall be put to death for his own sin. You shall not pervert justice due to the stranger or the fatherless, nor take a widow's garment as a pledge. But you shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you from there. Therefore I command you to do this thing. When you reap your harvest in your field, and forget a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to get it. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat your olive trees, you shall not go over the boughs again. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you shall not glean it afterwards. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore I command you to do this thing. May the Lord bless these instructions to us, that we might learn to be compassionate on the needy. This principle of caring for the poor in society, it's not a government responsibility, it's our responsibility. In Western society, because we have failed, governments have tried to pick it up, but governments cannot do it very well. We must take up the responsibility. And so in Israel, this is the focus of so many of these laws. You were slaves in Egypt. You were taken advantage of. Remember what it's like, and be prepared to help those who are in trouble. There will always be needy among us. Jesus tells us we can do good to them whenever we will.